Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Kelsey. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today I'm going to be doing a review of the new-ish Wet n Wild Photo Focus Stick Foundation. So just a little bit of information about my skin and like my foundation preferences and how foundation typically wears on my skin so you can get an idea of what I think of this. I have a combination to oily skin, definitely in like the warmer months, which we're getting there finally. My skin does get a little bit oily throughout the day, especially if I'm not wearing like a ton of powder, which I don't typically wear a ton of powder because I don't enjoy that look. I go for like a natural finish, something that's not too matte, something that's not too like glowy, and something that's gonna give a skin-like finish, nothing too harsh or like super full coverage, super matte. Anything that doesn't look like skin is kind of like something I don't go for. So I love a natural foundation, or I love like a good concealer and powder look. Something that just looks like skin, but just a little bit more perfected. I do have acne scarring, and occasionally I will get the pimple popping up. Now, like I said, I do get oily throughout the day, or I will get shiny. So usually what I do is just wear minimal foundation because I feel like that lessens the oiliness, and then I will set my foundation. I always set with a powder. I used to do like powder foundation on top of foundation, but I'm not really a fan of that anymore. That kind of goes against like the skin-like finish a little bit. So what do I think of this guy here? First of all, I feel like there's a lot of controversy going on with Wet n Wilds right now, and I'm slightly disappointed. If you don't know and you want to know more information, because I'm not like the total source of knowledge on this, I'm sure you can just search in YouTube Wet n Wild cruelty-free status. I do buy cruelty-free makeup. I do have some stuff that I still have in my collection that is not cruelty-free, or stuff that like people have bought for me that I use. I'm just trying to do what I can, so I purchase my new purchases cruelty-free. And Wet n Wild recently started selling their products in China, which China tests on animals, which is a bummer. Wet n Wild says that they are cruelty-free, that they don't test their products on animals, even the products being sold in China, which to my understanding seems like it's the truth. But the Chinese government can take products and test them on animals at any time after they're being like sold in stores. So Wet n Wild products in China can be tested on animals at any point. And so I feel like I'm kind of torn, because Wet n Wild is honestly one of my favorite brands. It's like one of my go-to brands for drugstore makeup because it's super affordable. I feel like typically their products are super high quality and it's cruelty-free. And so I feel like you can't go wrong. But now it's kind of a bummer. And I think the thing that, and again, I'm not like total source of knowledge on this, but the thing that was kind of bothering me that I heard is that they were saying that they don't sell in China, and then they did, and they said that they were selling in China for like the past few months, which is kind of like they were just lying to everyone. So again, I don't know the entire story, but if you want to know more information, look it up. I'm just saying I'm torn right now because Wet n Wild personally doesn't test on animals, but they have chosen to sell in a country that does test on animals and requires testing on animals. So I don't know, maybe leave your thoughts down below. I'm really bummed. I've been testing this foundation for a while now and was like wanting to give a review, so I thought I would just still go with it. Because I do know there's lots of people that aren't necessarily cruelty-free, or that it's not like a huge hindrance to them. And so I'm still undecided as to if I will be purchasing Wet n Wild products anymore. I don't know. Again, leave your thoughts down below. I'd love to hear what you think. But anyways, let's move on to the product now that we're like 6 minutes into this video, and let's talk about this. So this is the Wet n Wild Photo Focus Stick Foundation. I have it in the shade Shell Ivory, which is the fair Cool shade. I know they have quite a few shades available on their website, but in stores you can't find a ton of shades, and so I had a hard time finding a shade that was gonna work for me. They had a shade like lighter than this, but it looked super rosy. This one says cool, which is like, would be more rosy than, or like more like cool tone than the other one. But the other one looked like straight pink. This one looked less pink and more like neutral. And then the neutral one, or there was the warm one, and the warm one looked like it would not work on my skin at all. And so I feel like this is an okay match for me. I typically will go for like a fair neutral or like a light neutral, kind of depending on the time of year and if I have any sort of tan, which right now I do not, and honestly most of the time throughout the year I do not. When I first put it on, I do notice it's a little too pink for my skin, but once I blend it out it's really not noticeable, and I feel like once I have it on, which I am wearing this today, it doesn't look like it doesn't match my skin tone. It looks really nice on my skin. But this is like a swatch of it here. So you can see it's pretty similar to my skin tone. A little bit pinkier than like my skin tone, but really not bad at all. Definitely compared to other foundations, I feel like this is a pretty fair match for my skin. So I'm just gonna start off by telling you how I like to use this stick foundation. This is the only stick foundation I've ever used, by the way. So I don't know what to compare it to. But how I like to use this is sparingly. This is definitely not a foundation that lasts on me throughout the day like perfectly. The first time I used this, I applied quite a bit of it. Like I was like putting like stripes of it on my face and then blending it out, which I use a brush for blending it out, and it does blend out really easily with a brush. I did try it with a sponge once. I didn't like it as much as the brush, but I put on quite a bit of it and it looked great when I applied it. I was like, oh man, this has got like some nice coverage. It's definitely not like a full coverage by any means. It's like a light medium coverage, but it looked like skin, which, like I said earlier, that's kind of my go-to thing. And so it looked nice on the skin when I first put it on. It added some coverage. It didn't look too heavy. It didn't look too dewy. It didn't look mattifying or anything. I didn't check my foundation that day until like later in the day. I typically do my makeup pretty early in the morning, around 6 or so, and then I don't touch up throughout the day because I'm usually just working, and so I don't really care about touching up my makeup unless if I'm like going out later at night, which honestly very rarely happens. And so I had checked my makeup, I think after work, so probably around 4 or 5 or so, and I did notice it was breaking down heavily. And like, I'm talking like creasing in places I don't normally get creasing. So like there was like creases happening above my eyebrows from like expressing, I guess. So there was like creases in my forehead. There was creases all around my cheeks. My chin looked kind of dry, like right under my lip, but then the bottom half of my chin was completely worn off. It looked okay, kind of like in the front of my face, because that's where I put most of the powder on, is to like set under my eyes and right in here where I get most oily. And so it looked fine there. The middle of my forehead was pretty much either like worn off or just like really weird, like creasy. So honestly, it didn't look great. It looked okay on my cheeks. It was like still kind of okay. And so I was kind of bummed because I was like, dang, I just bought this foundation and after my first use, it sucked. So the next time I used it, which was a few days later because I was kind of like fed up with it, I didn't want to try it anymore, I went in very lightly. And by very lightly, I mean like, I put like a small stripe and like a dot, small stripe, dot, a little bit on my nose, a little dot on my chin, and like a stripe on my forehead, and then blended it out, and then added concealer where I needed to, and then set it with powder again, very lightly. And I really liked that. So it gave it my skin like a little bit of a perfected finish. And again, like I said, what I like is just like a light coverage skin-like look. And so that's definitely the method of application that has worked best for me. So very minimal application and then blending it out, adding concealer where needed. Because like I said, I get oily and I guess it just breaks this product up. So I would definitely say this is not like a mattifying product at all. I wouldn't even say this is like a natural coverage. I would say this is actually like a dewy coverage foundation. And I guess I haven't seen like a ton of people talk about this or like do a review about it, or maybe I just hadn't paid attention, but I just know that I was interested because I'd never really tried a stick foundation and I thought Wet n Wild would be a good one to try. Now I don't like the other Photo Focus foundation, like the original liquid foundation. If you've been around my channel for a while, you probably know I used to love that foundation, and then all of a sudden it was just like my skin didn't like it anymore. And so I'm wondering how this will work out over the next few months as I use it, which this does come with not a ton of product. It has 0.42 ounces, but I do find that when it's a stick, I use a lot less than I do when it's a liquid. Like, I'm not using a ton of product. Even if I was using like more product than I do, I'm not using a ton. So I don't think this is like a bad deal. I think this was like $5.99 at Target. So I don't think you're getting like gypped on the amount of product you're getting. It just depends on if this is gonna work for your skin. So if you have like combination to oily skin and you like a full coverage foundation, I would say to pass on this. If you have drier skin, maybe. I will say, I think I mentioned earlier, it starts to look a little weird on like dry patches. I get a little dry around my mouth sometimes, and it definitely clings to it a little bit, even throughout the day, as like other parts are like wearing off around my mouth, or like dry spots will be kind of like dry looking still, and it's really weird. And then it also accentuates pores a little bit if you're not careful. Like, I have to put a pore filling primer on and let it like completely like set before going in with this foundation, and then it's okay. But if I go in with like just a regular old primer and then go in with this, you can like see my pores a lot. And I think that's partially because of the brush as well. I think if I used a sponge, it wouldn't accentuate it quite as much. But I don't know, I feel, I guess kind of like Wet n Wild, I feel kind of torn on this product because I think it looks good. I don't think it's great by any means. Would I say run out and buy this? No. Is it terrible though? No. So I will continue using this as like a very light coverage foundation with concealer and powder. Powder is definitely a must for me. And I think also I might like it better in the colder months. So I don't know. If you've used this, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this foundation down below, or if you have like a favorite stick foundation, leave that down below too, because like I said, I haven't tried any other stick foundations. This is the only one I've tried, and so far, stick foundation isn't really my jam. It is very easy to apply, which is very nice. Like, you don't have to like take it out and like squirt it on something and then put it on your face, or like take the doe foot and put it all over. You just kind of like beep, 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 and then you're done. Well, not done. You have to blend it out. Okay, I think I've said enough. I think I've shared my feelings on this, but if you have questions or thoughts or anything, leave them down below, because I would love to get some conversation started with you guys. But that is it for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe down below if you haven't already. I would love to have you around. And until next time, bye guys.